understand how we can do it better and for an even longer time. I remember when I was starting telecenters back in the late 1980s. And I remember we would get our telecenter managers, one of whom was actually in the room, together. And they would not go by the program we had organized. They would just have this spirit of imagination, of the need and the desire to share that was extremely powerful. And that is why we do these, because your togetherness, your desire and need to share is extremely powerful. I just want to say three things about the future that I think are important in terms of challenges for all of us. The first is, and many of you know this has been my hobby horse for a while, digital divergence. The trend lines of mobile telephony adoption are exponential, almost 5 billion now. The trend lines of new internet adoption are not. The trend lines of internet adoption, they're not plateaued, but they're rising at a much slower rate. So what happens in the space between those who only use mobile and the internet and those who have more value-added services using the internet? That's an important space, and that's a developing world space. So what does that mean for telecenters? The second issue that I think is going to become my new hobby horse is what I now call digital feudalism. And by digital feudalism, I think back to when we were first introducing telecenters in rural parts of Canada's poorest province, as it was at the time, Newfoundland. We only had to deal with learning one operating system. It was kludgy, it was hard to learn, it was DOS, but it worked on almost every machine. So when you taught someone how to use an operating system, they could help someone else because they'd be using the same system, and it could spread very quickly. So all the devices, and increasingly most of the software that ran on computers, came to run on that operating system. So now the situation is very different. Now with 5 billion people using mobile phones, we have what I would refer to as 5 feudal manners, or at least 5 feudal manners. And those would include Android, Apple, Palm's WebOS, Windows Mobile, and BlackBerry, and perhaps there's others that I'm not including. And what I learned how to do on those does not interoperate with the others. And so my skills of one particular device don't translate to be of use to anybody else unless I am a digital serf of that particular device's operating system. I would add to this that as increasingly the software that we use is no longer software we load on a computer, but it's called an app. The software we use is apps that are running on mobile phones. They don't interoperate. It used to be all the software ran on one operating system, except for the Apple. But it was principally every computer could run most of the software that was used. That's no longer the case. If I have an app in one digital space, it doesn't work in another. This is an issue for us. How do we design, or how do we redesign the technology so that it can spread more quickly and not be imprisoned by a particular digital space? And the last change I think is important for us, and I learned this, again, thanks to